Hello and welcome. We appreciate you joining us here today. We'll be getting started in just a few minutes, so grab that last second coffee refill, and we'll see you right at the top of the hour. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome. Today we'll be chatting about best practices to strengthen your donor segmentation. Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Madison Koutman, and I will be hosting today's session. Joining us today as our GiveSmart expert and speaker, we have Nikki Kashup, GiveSmart's Director of Donor Management Solutions and a founder of GiveSmart Donor CRM. So some housekeeping tips as we get going. Please feel free to use the Q&A box for any questions you might have as we go, and check your chat box for resources and links we're going to share throughout the webinar. Our colleague Megan is helping us out on the back end, so keep the questions coming and she'll pass them to us. Also, today's call is being recorded and the recording will be shared with everyone attending. So Nikki, with that, I will pass it to you to introduce yourself and go over today's agenda.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm super happy to be here. So hi, everyone. So today we'll be talking about, we'll have a chat discussion about donor segmentation, some data filtering. We'll do a live data demo and save some time for polling to get a feel for where you might find yourself in comparison to your peers at different nonprofits and what kind of filtering, segmenting, and reporting those different users might be focusing on. Towards the end, we'll leave some time for question and answer, and hopefully have some time for some live segmenting requests via chat. So as Madison mentioned, please keep the questions coming. We'll answer them live and save some for the end. Just a heads up, I am horrible at reading the chat and doing a demonstration at the same time. So if I don't answer you right away, I promise I'm not ignoring you. I will get back to all of the questions as soon as I am able to. Before diving into the demonstration today, as Madison mentioned, I am one of the two co-founders for our donor management CRM software. I'm really excited to be here today. I have about, I did the math the other day, but I always forget. I think it's around 16 or 17 years experience in the industry. I got my start, as many fundraisers do, falling into fundraising with a group of friends, raising money for Alex's Lemonade Stand and the National Kidney Foundation. During that point in time, I was studying computer science and I thought, man, this would be so much easier if I had a software to do it. So I attempted to build my own donor management software without realizing that there was a whole market dedicated to donor management software. Shortly after college, I found myself employed by a donor management company, one of the most popular ones in the market. And that's where I learned everything I know about donor management software. Fast forward a few years later, I had the opportunity, instead of supporting an existing donor management software, but taking the time to step into more of a leadership role and use all of the knowledge that I've collected over the years with my counterpart, who some of you may be familiar with, John Biederman, to put all of that knowledge together that we learned, combined 40 years experience between the two of us, to bring together a donor management software that truly was built by fundraisers for fundraisers. So let's jump into it. Next slide, please. What is segmentation? When we were brainstorming what to talk about during this webinar today, one of the first things that came into my mind was the confusion or the interchangeability of words that really shouldn't be interchanged. So oftentimes people will talk about filtering, reporting, and segmenting all as if they're the same thing. Any kind of customization kind of falls into that general category. But in reality, segmentation and reporting are two very, very different things. So you might think of segmentation as filtering, querying tags, attributes, or even SQL. Next slide, please. Segmentation is not the fields displayed, the report format, the Excel export, or the dashboard view. So if you think of it in terms of how they relate to one another, segmentation is what you want to see, not how you want to see it. So just keep that in mind as we go through the session today. So I lost my train of thought here. Okay. So donor segmentation. Your donors all have different motivations for giving, though they all contribute to your organization. Segmenting donors into groups and delivering content based on each group's needs can create a more customized experience for all of your givers. Group your donors in your CRM or database based on similar characteristics such as campaign history and type, donation amount, recurring donor status, gift type, giving frequency, and demographics like location, gender, and age. Grouping individuals this way should influence your social media strategy, communication frequency, major donor pipeline, committee nominations, corporate pipeline, and more. By segmenting donors and your communications with them, you have a greater chance of reaching your donors in ways that they'll most likely respond to. So data filtering, this is one of my favorite topics. There's really an unlimited number of ways to think about filtering, and you can get as creative as you want with this. Some of my favorite categories to consider when I'm filtering are really all going to revolve around prospecting. I love the idea that there are different segments of donors who are ideal for different categories. So, for example, does everyone have their pen and paper handy? I'm going to give you some nuggets of gold here. Donors who have given 14 out of the last 15 consecutive years are excellent candidates for end-of-life giving opportunity conversations, for planned gift conversations, at the risk of sounding morbid, those types of things. Donors who have made their first gift of $5,000 or more, so not their first gift ever, but the first time they've given $5,000 or more, that's like somebody raising their hand saying, I'm ready to be a major donor, solicit me. And donors who have given 3 gifts that increase in value over the last 12 to 15 month window, those are excellent candidates to have a recurring donor conversation with. So those are my 3 favorite categories to think about when I'm considering different kinds of donor segments. But a couple of more examples you see on the screen: donors who gave gifts this year and last year and 2 years ago. Those are the people who are going to have a higher lifetime value that you want to keep with you for a very long time. So keep soliciting them. Don't let them lapse. Donors who have given a gift of $5,000 or more, As we mentioned, those are those hand raisers. Donors who have given a gift of $5,000 or more and have an average donation amount that's less than $5,000, that's an even better way to close the gap on those hand raisers and really target those people that would be great for that major donor conversation. We talked about donors who had given 3 times or more within a time period, but there's also the consideration of donors who have given this year and have an average gift amount that's less than $100, but a one-time gift that's greater than $100, and they don't have an existing recurring gift. It's another way to really hone in on a very specific group of people who have a potential to give to you a certain way. Next slide, please. So just a couple of key things to talk about or to keep in mind as we go through segmenting today. GiftSmart Donor CRM is really great for retention rate tracking. It's one of my favorite topics when it comes to donor management software. There's a couple of things that you can do to keep your retention rates higher, which will benefit you in the long run. We're not going to focus on those things today, but just something to keep in mind. Make sure your donor management software or your CRM, whatever you're using, is able to tell you that information so you can make the most of it. We also offer a really awesome search tool that has a sprinkle of AI in it. So you're going to get awesome results that are just very natural. You don't have to worry about spelling things correctly or capitalizing things a certain way. You don't have to worry about which member of a household you're searching for, or if you're searching for a certain company. Everything just kind of makes sense and works. We also offer donor scoring, which is going to give you that affinity by capacity comparison. So you can tell, do your donors love you and do they have funds to donate to you? Querying reporting, of course, that's a standard that you should always have. And remember, querying and reporting, 2 separate things, what you want to see and how you want to see it. We also have integrations with wealth management through donor search and so much more. So before we jump into the demonstration today, I do have a poll that I'd like, if everyone could participate in, that would be wonderful, just to give me an idea of what we're going to be focusing on today. What types of segments do you find yourself gravitating towards? And there we go. I love these kinds of polls because this was not the answer I was expecting. Giving level is taking the cake so far. That was not the answer I was expecting to come in first place. So I was expecting Libunt Sibunt to be first place. So it's really exciting to see different trains of thought.
In the chat, we had someone say other is action takers or petition signers.
Oh, I love that one. I would love to learn more about how you're tracking that. If you have a certain field or if you have a different advocacy software that you're using to help with that. Awesome. It looks like we've got a pretty good participation rate. So before we jump into it, giving level takes the cake, followed by Libunts and Sibunts, and then your first time donor, early life cycle donor. And then we've got that other with tracking more activity style information, which I love that. That's a great creative thinker, I can tell. All right, let's get into the system. Give me a second to turn my screen on. All right, so everybody should be able to see my screen. Madison, can you test for me? Are you able to see my screen?
Yep, looks great.
Perfect. So before I jump into filtering, just a quick tour of the dashboard here. We've got our key metrics right at the top of the screen, how much money we've raised this year, our donor retention rate, but even more important, our donor annual revenue retention rate. So this is showing us of the donors from last year, what percentage of them are we keeping? And this is telling us of the dollars we raised last year, what percentage of it are we also keeping? We have some key statistics as recommended by the AFP-FEP, or the Association of Fundraising Professionals Fundraising Effectiveness Project. Scrolling down, we've got a list of our most recent donors. You've got your activities, including any activities that you've completed, keeping in mind that these can also be connected to your calendar. You've got a year-over-year comparison and a donor map at the bottom. So a couple of easy segments right off the top here, if we wanted to get into those details. I'm going to pop over to reports. So remember what we were talking about before. There's what you want to see versus how you want to see it. So I'm going to work backwards here with the how I want to see it. So I can take a general report, in this case, the donor report, that's going to tell me all of the information I want to know about my donors. Now, right now, I'm running the query or the segment for donors this year so far based on a date range. I can always take that a step further and query further, but we'll save that conversation for next. For now, I want to highlight in this particular report, I can see all of the donors who have given this year, their contact details, the last gift date, their lifetime value, their smart donor score, which is that affinity, the number of gifts they've given in this date range that I have specified here, not overall in their lifetime, the number of years that they've donated in this date range. So of course, this is only going to be one because we're only looking at 1 year here, the sum of donations, average donation, and median donation. So we're going to go back to segmenting, and I'm going to take this back about 16 months. So let's take this to January of last year and rerun this report. And you can see a few details have changed here, but we have most of the same people. And we were talking earlier about donors who have given 3 gifts or more in that 12 to 15 month window being excellent candidates for recurring donors. So I can take this report and sort it by number of gifts, and I can go down to where the 3 starts and look upwards there and see that these people, go and click happy. These people from here up are excellent candidates to have a recurring giving conversation with. Now, I do not have 15 years worth of data in my demonstration database, but if I did, I could do the same thing by sorting number of years donated and choosing everybody who had given 14 or greater in this area. And that would be my list of people for legacy giving conversations. Now, from here, I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty of segmenting. Let's start by segmenting our people. I'm going to go to donors and contacts and view my contact listing. And right away, I'm just going to see a list of everyone. But perhaps I want to get specific. I can do something like donors who've donated last year, but not this year, and apply that and see all of those people. Let's go even further and let's open that in a new tab here. And let's do our last year, but not this year donors. So I just wanted to highlight when we're building a filter. Now this system includes tons of filters to get you started, including the last year, but not this year filter that we're using in this example. But it's super easy to build queries, and queries are spelled out for you in plain English. So if you're the type of person where SQL makes your head spin, or looking at these fields and you're not exactly sure how they relate to one another, the system will spell it out to you exactly as it's intended to work, or as it is going to work. So you can check that against your intention. Now, the last year, but not this year donors is showing us everybody who has a sum of gift amount that is greater than or equal to 0, where the gift date is exactly equal to last year. So a gift greater than 0 last year. And then the second condition is where the sum amount of the gift is exactly equal to 0 for this year. So a dollar amount from last year, but no dollar amount this year. Going back to that list of people showing me, oops, I already had it open, my donors from last year, but not this year. I can also flip-flop this and see not only that side of the query, but the opposite side of the query, the people who actually did donate this year. Now, I remember on that query, the giving level was a popular segment. So I'm going to pause for a minute here. If everybody could, or if you chose giving level, if in the chat you wouldn't mind giving me some examples of what giving levels you gravitate towards. And Madison, I, for some reason, can't see the chat. So if you could call out a couple of examples, I'd appreciate that.
We did have William type in and said, I like to segment by gift ranges, looking for blocks to moving donors up to the next level. Indiana has tax credits of 100 and 200 for gifts of 200 and 400 respectively for single and married donors. Inadvertently, this led to donor stagnation at 200 and at 400. So maybe you also have some ideas there to get past the stagnation, but then let's see, we also have Marcy who said donors over 100, donors over 500, and so on. Steph said 1,000 plus donors in a year, so $1,000 plus in a year. These are great. So definitely looks like giving levels. We're seeing those intervals in the hundreds and the thousands for sure.
All right, let's do this then. So I'm going to start by, let's go back to no filter, apply. So we're starting fresh here, and I'm going to add a new filter, and we're going to do, we'll just do show me contacts where I'm looking at these examples again, and these are just numbers without timelines. So let's use lifetime total as opposed to a timeline. Now, keep in mind, we should be able to do both. So for example, Marcy said donors over $100, donors over $500, and so on. We could do donors over $100 this year, donors over $100 over their lifetime. So there's lots of different ways we can spin this, but for the sake of example, I'm just going to stick with lifetime overall. So let's say show me contacts where the value of we're going to highlight those transactions where the value of, actually, let's do total gift amount is, we could do between, if we wanted to get that 101 to 500 segment, or we could do is greater than 500, or we could do is less than or equal to 100 to pull those people. What I love about this is that I know roughly how many people within my database to expect, and this list is going to update in real time as I adjust this filter. So that's one option. Or if you wanted to do maybe over a sum of gifts. So let's say sum of gift amount is between 101 and 500, and the value of, whoops. And the value of, let's do gift date is, let's do, is exactly equal to a variable date of this year. So we could adjust that to be this year. Maybe we want to run this same query for last year and only show the people who fall into that date range last year. We can also talk about donors who have given, well, we did that one. We did Steph's $1,000 plus donors in a year. So that would just be sum of gift amount is greater than or equal to 1,000. And the value of the date is this year. Also, that brings up another point I'd like to mention. When you're querying or filtering, keep in mind the value of dynamic versus static information. So in this particular example, this is a dynamic filter, meaning that this filter or query will always equal this year's total, no matter what year I run it in. If I were to want 2023's total, then I should actually type in the dates for 2023, but I can just create this filter once and leave it, and every year it'll be up to date with the new year's total. I'm going through these examples one more time. There were a couple of other great examples in this chat here. So moving donors up to the next level, I love that idea. So William, I'm going to read your chat out loud so we're all referencing the same thing. I like to segment by gift ranges, looking for blocks to move donors up to the next level. Indiana has tax credits of $200 for gifts of $200 and $400 respectively for single and married donors. So again, what I love about this question is we're going to take this a step further. Let's look at my gift listing for all of my donors, and I'm going to let's just do this year to keep it simple. Through today, submit, that narrows down the list a little bit. So let's go ahead and take this a step further. I realize not everybody on the call has a donor CRM system. So let's take this a step further in Excel. So I just did an export of the people who I have donations from for this particular year. And if you are an Excel user, I highly encourage you to make use of filtering and sorting on that top column there. If you can get a list of all of your gifts within a specific date range, we could do something along the lines of, let's filter this for everybody who's in that 100 to 200. Actually, let's go all the way up to 500. So I can take it a step further and query directly from within Excel by making use of those filters within the system. You could see it's the same export, but now I've just narrowed it in on those people. So maybe these are the people I want to focus on moving up to the next level. And I can even take it a step further and use this file or save as a CSV format and use this file for a mail merge. Or even if you're using Constant Contact or MailChimp, if you have emails in this file, you could export or import this into one of those two and try to move those donors up using a communication tool like Constant Contact or MailChimp. Going back to that chat again, any giving level based on event participation, membership, or program registration. Oh, I love that one too. Lots of great ideas in here. So when you are tracking details like event participation, membership, or program registration, remember we were talking about that static versus dynamic information. So the ability to query once on information that might change over a period of time and making sure that list is always up to date. Anything that is transactional, like participation in a specific event, it can be transactional because you might have one donor participating in multiple events. Membership, also transactional because people might renew at different time intervals. So each time interval is a different transaction. And program registration, every time they register, that is also a transaction. So having that information, that transactional information, stored in your database in a way that allows you to pull it out one at a time will allow you to only have to update that information once and always be able to query on it. So a lot of people like to gravitate towards flags or attributes when they're thinking about their donor database. And this is a very slippery slope to fall into. You want to reserve your tags or attributes for generic information. So I would not want to create a tag here that says event participant or member or registrant, because that means every time I have another event, a membership renewal cycle, or another program that needs to be registered for, I'm going to have to go in and update every single tag. And we don't want to do that. It's much better to track those details transactionally. And you can run a query that says, show me everybody who participated in the 2022 golf outing, or show me everybody whose membership is going to lapse in the next 3 months. So having a transactional line item that's not financially associated, like an activity, some systems will call it contact management. That's really going to allow you to hone in on those details without creating the burden on yourself to constantly update details like tags that really shouldn't need to be changed on a regular basis. Does that make sense? I guess.
Yeah. Someone asked, what about people who participated in an event, but maybe they didn't donate?
Oh, I love that one. So we could do something along the lines of, let's go back to donors and contacts, and let's do people who are participating in an event but didn't donate. So let's do where the value of, do I have anything in here? So let's say, one more, let's try activity type. There we go. So let's say everybody who, let's use volunteer hours for this because that's the example I have in my system. So pretending that volunteer hours was volunteering for an event, let's choose the value where activity type is exactly equal to volunteer hours, which is going to show me everybody who has volunteered, and also show me where the value of total gift amount is exactly equal to 0. So people who are non-donors but have participated in a volunteer activity. Now, I don't have any in this database, but that's one way to do it. And because we've tracked event participation separately as a transactional item, we have the ability to compare contrast in our filters with other transactional items like giving amounts. Last but not least, I have one last poll for everyone. Madison, if you could launch the poll, please.
Yeah. All right, there we go.
What segments do you struggle with? Do you struggle with legacy, recurring, major donor, something else that you have in mind that you'd like to see? I know we are running short on time here, but I'm keeping an eye on that chat box. So if somebody has something that jumps out. All right, it doesn't look like anything's coming through chat. So just in summary, everybody take out your pen and paper again. Remember, legacy donor prospects, somebody who has donated 14 out of the last 15 consecutive years. Recurring prospects, somebody who has donated 3 times or more in the last 12 to 15 month window. Ideally, that gift amount is increasing each time. Major donor prospects, somebody who has given their first $5,000 donation or greater. Those are 3 amazing segments to focus on that are proven based on data collected from all different kinds of nonprofits from third parties. So those are the proven segments for those 3 categories. All right, and Madison, I'll send it back to you.
Perfect. Okay, does my screen look all right?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll go through this last poll just pretty quickly before we jump into the Q&A for any last questions we might have. I know we've talked about a lot. You've seen a lot, especially within GiveSmart's donor CRM. So if you are, hold on one second. There we go. If you are interested in learning more about GiveSmart, whether that's about GiveSmart Donor CRM, GiveSmart in general for your organization, let us know. There will also be a post-webinar survey. So if you have any questions, any feedback, or more specific questions about GiveSmart that maybe you don't have a chance to answer here in this poll. Sorry, wow, words. Please let us know, and we are more than happy to get back to you. And just a reminder, you saw it at the very beginning in those first few minutes before we got started, we are offering up to $1,000 off some of our contracts right now. So that is an amazing opportunity for your organization. And those contracts would include GiveSmart Donor CRM as a bundle, which is super exciting. So you have access to the platform we were just showing you. So let us know. And I will go ahead and close that poll so that we can move on to the Q&A. So any questions from anyone? Nikki, could you just quickly go over donor CRM integrations?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently Donor CRM integrates with donor search as well as oh my gosh, I'm blanking. It's the matching gift service. It'll
Double
come back.
donation?
Sorry. Yes, thank you. Double the donation. So we offer several different levels of integration with donor search. One that's included with all donor CRM systems, which will give you access to somebody's donor search score, which will tell you how likely they are to make a donation based on their giving history with other nonprofits. And it will also tell you your that person's estimated gift capacity. So a single dollar amount that you can ask for that person should be capable of giving based on what they've given to other organizations. That's included with every system. There are 2 optional add-ons. If you wanted a mid-level, we can give you access to things like 7 additional data points that will show things like if somebody sits on a grant board or a foundation board, which interestingly enough, donors who have grant giving foundation or grant seeking nonprofit affiliation, those individuals will on average make a gift that is 4 times larger than an individual without that kind of affiliation. So you'll have access to data points that help you identify, again, pockets of people who are good to target for specific types of solicitations. We also, and then the final level would be access to the entire donor search profile. So for those of you who are familiar with wealth screening, that would really tell you anything you could possibly want to know about that donor. The other integration that we offer through Double the Donation is an integration with online forms. So your donors will be able to make their donation, and before they click submit, there is a search box that says, see if your company or if your employer matches donations. They type in the name of their employer, and if that employer does match donations, it prompts them moving forward to start the process so that your organization can receive that matching gift contribution.
Perfect. Let's see, I don't see any other specific questions in the chat, but I guess if we want to wrap up, one last question I would have. I came from a very small nonprofit before joining the GiveSmart team, and donor segmentation was a very new concept to us at the time because of how small we were. And I know that a lot of organizations are in that same space, or maybe they're just trying it out. Maybe they don't have a ton of experience, or they only use a couple of segments. So do you have any advice for getting started?
Yes, absolutely. This is an awesome question. Thank you for asking it. I'm going to echo what I was saying earlier about tags and attributes. It's so easy to fall into the trap of tagging everything, creating a tag for everything. You want to log information about somebody, just tag it. Don't do that. You are cutting yourself short. You are going to make your work harder for you later on, because tags can, if they're not done correctly, they can become out of date and you won't have up-to-date information. So anything that is considered Transactional, anything that can change over time, make sure it's recorded in its own line item, not its own cell in the same line item as the person's name. Just keep things as transactional as possible.
Love that. Yeah. All righty. Well, we can go ahead and wrap up. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Like I mentioned earlier, please use that end of webinar survey to share your feedback with us and request contact if you want to learn more. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you, Nikki, for your time and your expertise and for showing us the platform and giving us some really great best practices for segmentation. We will see everyone next time.